Let's see here. Let's see if people start rolling in here. Here we go. Sunday again. This is Sunday Swings live show. We'll let everybody roll in. If you're joining the show, if you're joining me on Periscope, make sure you share the show. Give the show a retweet. A couple topics tonight. You were usually on here for about 30 minutes and then take questions at the end. So feel free to fire off any questions. If you've got questions, again, my name is Chad Longworth, and I am a trainer, baseball, softball players. I train players just like you every day from the ages of 8 to 25 at all levels of play. I work with Division I programs, training programs, programming, player development, all these things. This is a weekly show that I do just to discuss topics of player development and training. So if you have questions or concerns, or you follow me on Twitter and you want some more context of what we've been talking about all week, just fire away. If you're just joining the show and everybody's rolling in, I appreciate the retweet the show, share the show. Again, if you missed the show and you want to go back, a lot of the previous shows are on YouTube, podcasts. I'm behind. I always run behind this time of year. I train so many players this time of year, and I'm working so much in the cage this time of year. I worked from 1 to 8 today. I rolled out, ate dinner, and now I'm jumping on here to talk about the topics of the night, which are the early season returns of our players that we trained in the off season. It's funny this time of year because the players that we have, the college players that we train remotely, and everybody that we have starts to filter back to their team, which is fine. But it's funny because this time of year, everybody that said that swing's not going to play in a game, or your pitchers aren't going to be able to throw strikes from throwing weighted balls all winter. Again, the early season returns are good. Our guys are hitting a lot of home runs. The weighted bat, I worked with Clemson this offseason. They just swept Dallas Baptist this weekend. They're 6-0, I think, swinging the bat very, very well. I'm not taking credit for that. I'm just saying their weighted bat programming, they've got guys who've never hit home runs that are hitting home runs now. Drew Wharton has 3 on the year, and he's never hit 1 in college. He's got 3 in the first 6 games of his senior year. But yes, so intent-driven training really, really matters. Environmental constraints really, really matter. Central nervous system, movement pattern development really, really matters. And again, I think that, and this is kind of goes to where the topic. There's a couple of different directions in the discussion tonight. First of all, I think that it goes into the topic of enablers and enabling somewhat. I don't know if you saw the John Calipari video that I posted this week about him talking about enablers and listening to the wrong people. And I think of one of the knocks on and makes my work a lot harder is that a lot of on-field coaches deal with guys that do what I do who are enablers. That they take people's money to tell the people what they want to hear, how they want to hear it, and they're not actually doing it for the good of the player. My whole why and my whole journey is to help players be as good as they can possibly be. I have no pride in that. I have no ego in that. That's why I'm to where I am as far as the training goes, the weighted bats, the weighted balls, the intent, the external cues, the just the overall philosophy that I've arrived at now is all because I'm driven by doing what's in the best interest of players. I think what a lot of on-field coaches deal with and what I do is they deal with a lot of lesson guys who just enable players, who just tell them what they want to hear and just fill them full of nothing and an offensive philosophy that goes contradictory to what maybe the on-field coach says. We have a player agreement in everybody that trains in our building every player that signs that trains in our building signs a player agreement that states there's no coach bashing in here. I'm not here to listen to you bash your coach. I'm not going to listen to, it's not my job. It's not my job to be your psychologist and you bash your coach, and I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to be a part of you bashing your on-field. I don't care. That's not my job. My job for the players I train in-house, the players I train online, is to make sure that they have every opportunity to reach whatever potential it is they have. I'm not trying to enable them. I'm not trying to fill them full of fluff and nonsense. I'm just trying to give them the best opportunity that they can have to be successful. I'm not an enabler. I don't just take people's money. Actually, if I felt that there were other people that could train the players that I train better, I would refer them to them. You know, I would say, hey, go see this guy. He's better than me at this. You need to see him because you need his ideas. And I encourage people to work with other people online. I encourage you to reach out to people that you follow on Twitter or people that you like on Twitter and pick their brains. If you like what I do, you just take it as another tool in your toolbox and keep moving along, because you have to. I don't know if you listened to the Ben Brewster podcast on the art of pitching, but he talks about that process of kind of filling up his toolbox of knowledge and the exploration of what he knows. I get it. Like, I get the industry. I don't like a lot of things about baseball. I've said that a lot. I don't like a lot of things about player development. I don't like a lot of things about on-field, high school, showcasing, like the college process, travel ball. Like, I don't like what people, the bill of goods that people are sold a lot of times. We talked about this week about a guy that sits on the bucket and dips snuff and front tosses. That front tosses to people and charges them $90 an hour. It is, let me tell you this. I've got hit tracks. I've got weighted bats. I spend astronomical amount of times studying, programming, making our programs better. If you wanted to come train here with me for a month in-house, it's $80. For 1 day a week, it's $80 a month. So that's four times. That's $20 a time. Like, I don't charge an astronomical amount. I don't enable players. I don't tell them what they want to hear. I tell them what they need to hear. If they don't like that, they don't have to stay. And a lot of them don't. I lose a lot of business because I don't play that enabling game. I think a lot of people send their kids to people that do what I do so that they can enable them and empower them. And honestly, those guys, it's funny because this time of year, because the work that I do, the weighted bat, the weighted balls, the constraint-led approach, the passive development of motor skill and movement patterns, got a lot of guys, a lot of traditional guys, a lot of guys between the age of really 40 and 55 really are quick to spin zone the work that I do and redirect the conversation on how important the work that they do is. And I'm not discrediting what they do. I'm just saying that from a motor skill, motor pattern development approach, it's really irrelevant. Like pitch design and pitching philosophy and attacking hitters it's not a place for lessons. It's not going to help you. Throwing 48 and knowing how to attack hitters is not going to help you as a 10-year-old. Throwing 59 as a 15-year-old and knowing how to set up pitches is not going to help you, because you're not going to be very good. Your 59-mile-an-hour fastball is going to be crushed. If you're in high school and you're a junior, you throw 78. It's not going to help you to. It's not going to help you to know how to attack hitters, because your coach is going to call your pitch most of the time. And so, what difference does it make? Just throw the ball hard, throw the ball in the strike zone, and attack hitters. Attack hitters with the tools that you've worked very, very hard to develop, and that's what you need to know. You can hide from that truth, or you can hide from that fact. But it's the truth is the truth. The facts are facts in both baseball and softball. The players that throw the ball harder, they hit the ball harder, they hit the ball farther, play longer. I've got one girl who came in tonight, and she said, my coach likes me this year. Well, so that's funny, because you hit the ball in the parking lot now. The coach likes you. Of course he does. The coach likes players that hit the ball in the parking lot consistently, not players that hit the ball to second base all the time. Of course they like you. Of course the coach likes you more if you hit the ball hard and far, and help him win games. That's no secret. But the funny thing is that people don't believe the things that The people don't believe the things that we do and the results that we get can actually happen. It's funny because I was talking to a man this weekend about how I arrived at this place, and I'll tell you the story. I went to Apex, North Carolina, to K-Zone Academy to see Dan Kopinski probably 3 years ago now, because I was going to buy hit tracks, and I wasn't real familiar with how I was going to produce revenue in the business with hit tracks. I just knew it was a cool thing, a cool tool I needed. I wanted to go see him, how he implemented it in his facility. So we go down there, I walk in, and I walk in that day, and there are probably 25 college guys that day doing something that I had never seen before. They've got these weighted balls, and they're doing these weird drills, throwing into this wall, and they're running, and they're throwing the ball hard, and they're radaring it, and it's very competitive, and it's a very cool environment. And I'm like, what on earth is this? Like, what on earth is this? I went down here to see the hit tracks, but I arrive here and I stumble on this thing called Driveline. Like, what is this? Like, I've never seen this before in my life. What is this? Where most people would quickly spin zone and discredit it because it was not against, but it was just unfamiliar to what I was currently doing. I was very curious in what they were doing and why they were doing it and how they were doing it, and if it was something that I needed to do and explore. And so I find out what he's doing. We talked briefly about hit tracks. We talked mostly about weighted ball training that day. And then I came home, and I had a couple boys at that time who really would have done anything that I asked. I said, I want to try this thing that I saw in North Carolina. I'm going to study about it, but let's just jump in and try to figure it out. We'll be conservative with it, and the more I can do, the more we'll attack it. And so we get into it, and we start to attack it, and we start to build out, and I'm starting to see like really things that I'd never seen before. You know, I was Q guy. Like, I know Qs don't work because I was Q guy. Like, they work to a place, but you'll never get players over the hump doing that. Like, I couldn't get them over the hump. You won't either, because it's really impossible to do. You can get players to an acceptable place, but if you want them to excel, it's way more in depth than just cues, verbal cues all the time. And I had them all. Like, I had every one of them. It's a better place. I'm at a better place now. But really what I was seeing was now these two kids started to get over the hump to where I was always hitting the wall. And I said, well, this is interesting. We started to get in more players that wanted to try it and were interested in what we were doing. They came in and out. But really, then it became, all right, well, I've got this hit tracks now. I know that this weighted ball training is working really good. It's got to work the same way with weighted bats. And so we start to develop these constraint drills and with these overswinging really heavy bats, and we're starting to really see measurable results from weighted bat training in the same kind of progressive manner that Driveline trains throwers to develop throwing velocity. We were then applying the same methodology, backwards chaining, chunking, to the hitting process, and getting measurable results and measurable feedback from a hitting program. At this point, I started to really share it and put it online and developed it and thought people could do this for themselves. But it all started from just a general curiosity that day in North Carolina, where people were like, I was like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, why is, and where I think people are quick to shoot down things that they're unfamiliar with and things you don't know, especially coaches that are in that age of about 40 to 55. You should see how quick they spin zone the work that we do to well, yeah, now that guy that threw 78 last year's throwing 87, but he's got to know how to attack hitters, and that's what I do. And guys that are doing lessons in that business, people that do that are trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you as what they do is important. And I'm not discrediting as not, but it's funny how quickly they flip the conversation on, well, that work is really nice, but you got to know how to do this, or you got, like, no. At 78, what you're saying didn't matter. Now that how did he go from 78 to 87? That's what people need to pay for. That's the services people need, because from 78 to 87 in a year's time off the bump that's a real guy now. if you had just cued him for a year, he wouldn't have gone 78 for 87. If you would have just instructed him to attack hitters for a year, he wouldn't have gone from 78 to 87. He would have just gone from 78 to 79. I think a kid on his team, raw arm graded as a junior at 85. He came back this year as a senior. Not somebody we trained, just somebody that's on his high school team, and he raw arm graded 85 again. Like, if you don't do things that are going to help you improve your numbers and improve your potential output and improve your potential to do things in this game, then it's just not going to happen. Velocity just doesn't come. Power just doesn't come. Like, these things have to be trained, they have to be patterned, and they have to be recognized, and you have to choose curiosity. And I think what's interesting about all of this is just the general fixed-minded, conservative nature of baseball. And I was a weighted ball training. Even Kyle Bodie talks about how he thought weighted balls were dumb when he first started doing this. And then he just ran a study, ran a test, and said, wow, maybe I was wrong. And I do that every day. That's why I like to do this. That's why I like to talk to people who challenge the way that I think. Because anyone that says anything in this show, if it challenges me to think differently, I think differently instantly. Like, I don't hang on to pride, ego. I don't hang on to my way. I don't discredit what other people are doing. I'm just saying, like, you got to know, if you're watching this, like, you have to know what matters and what doesn't. And I think that's where my value maybe to you comes in, is to try to help you understand what matters and what doesn't, and how to train the things that matter and how just to not worry about the things that don't. I'm not going to beat around the bush with fluff and just all this hearsay. You either produce or you don't. You either are good enough or you're not. And you either do the things that you have to do to be that way, or you don't. And that's fine. You want to spin zone it however you want. If you want to discredit it as not important, you don't. It's like all the, it's all like the, and I'm not saying this isn't important, but it's like you've got such a good heart, you're such a nice like all that stuff is a given in life. Like, be a good person, like, be a good guy. Like, just because you don't work very hard, that doesn't make you a bad person. It just is what it is. Like, you're not doing what you have to do to be and achieve what you want to achieve. It's like we were talking today about a player that doesn't want to lift weights. He's always coming up with a reason why he can't lift. Because of course he doesn't. Like, lifting weights is really, really hard. Like, if you want to really, really improve and you really, really want to lift in a way that you should lift, it's really hard and it sucks, and you're going to be sore and you're going to be tired and it's going to be grueling and it's going to be painful. But you know what? If you want to be what you say you want to be, then that's just what you have to do. I think a lot of times what we get lost in, and I say this a lot to the players, is like the words that you say, the actions don't match the words. Like, that's cool that you say that you want to play at this or that level, but when I see your actions, they do not match what you are saying. They do not match that. You have no process to how you're going to weight train. You have no way to measure your tools and skills. Like, are you going to run faster? Okay, well, if you're going to run faster, what kind of programming, what kind of environmental constraints, what are you going to create to make yourself faster? If you're going to throw harder, how are you going to program? What kind of constraints are you going to help to improve the patterns that are going to help you do those things? And how are you going to measure it? How are you going to test it? How are you going to redesign the program? Like all of those things really, really matter. And it's so funny in baseball, because baseball people are, and softball's worse. We're talking softball because I'm going to softball in Mississippi in 2 weeks. Softball is worse in just the mentality of people discredit, like, in softball, the weighted bat training and all those things are very new and very foreign to a lot of people. So everybody discredits it. But I think you got to ask yourself as a parent, like, I know you may have a good relationship with your neighbors, who was a good player. Just A, just because you're a good player doesn't mean you can develop or you're a good coach. B, just because you're a good guy or a nice guy or a nice girl, that doesn't mean you're a good coach. That doesn't mean that you should just dump your money to somebody who's nice to tell your kid, to enable your kid, tell your kid what you want to hear, and then he goes to his high school and he can't produce. He or she is not producing, and it's not the coach's fault. Like, it's not the coach's fault that your kid didn't have the tools to make the team. Like, it's not your coach's fault. Then you go back to your instructor and say, well, the coach cut him. Like, and then the coach says, well, that coach is dumb. No, it's your fault. It's your fault. The information's out there. The way you be good at baseball and softball is out there. Hit the ball hard, hit the ball far, consistently, throw the ball hard, consistently. Attack hitters run fast. You will play on every team that you could ever imagine. You'll never get cut. You'll never really sit the bench if you can do those things. But it's like some sort of like, I gotta suck up. I gotta play. Like, just be good enough. Just be good enough. That's my number one advice to recruiting. People send me messages. How do I get recruited? Well, you got to be good enough first. You got to be so good that somebody does not ignore you. Because if you're 81 or, if you're a softball pitcher now, I'm into softball pitching now because I've just found it interesting, and I found it interesting that there was no weighted ball programming like there was weighted ball programming at Driveline. So I did my own, and we're testing it now, and it's going really, really good. If you throw 57, 55 in softball and you're a high school junior and you can't figure out why nobody's recruiting, you're 50 and why nobody's recruiting, just because you're not good enough. It has nothing to do with the quality of person you are. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality. I'm not going to, Apple's not going to hire me tomorrow to develop the next iPhone. They're not, because I'm not smart enough. I don't know what I'm doing. That's just the fact of the matter. And so, that Tennessee or Florida is not going to recruit you if you throw 52 because you're just not good enough. Like, they're going to recruit you if you throw 72 with stuff. So train to throw 72 with stuff. Like, that's the goal. Like, it's not the goal to like kiss the most tail or pay the most money to the most travel teams, to the most showcases, to the enabling instructor that just tells you that you want to hear what you want to hear when you want to hear it, and only tells you what you want to hear because he wants you to come back and pay him more. You ready? You hear that? The instructor he continues to tell. Instructors disregard the people, the work that I do. Other instructors that I work next to disregard the work that I do because they don't want their clients to come and do the work because they know what will happen, and they don't want to take money out of their pocket. Now, how insane is that? How insane is that? I understand they're in there trying to make a living. I understand all of this. But there comes a point where you got to know where your limitations are, and you got to say, all right, this is the next step in what you need to do. I've taught you all I could teach you. You need to go and you need to develop your tools. And this is the guy to do it. You know how many times that's happened? 0. It's never happened. It's never happened. I've never gotten one referral from another, I can use my quote fingers, instructor where somebody is paying for that other instructor's services. Not one. Never. It's never happened. It will never happen because that would take money out of that instructor's pocket and put it in mine, whatever. Like, it's not about that. It's not about that. But for too many people, it is about that. It is about that. It is about enabling their players, continuing to tell them what they want to hear so they continue to come back. Exit velocity development is massively important. And I've got to hit tracks in my building, and people that come in my building have never actually, like, the other instructors that have milled around have never once asked if their clients can use it. Not once. It never happens. Because they know if their clients do it, they will not see numbers that continue to go up. They won't do it because they don't know if here's what happens a lot. We get the swing sensor, $150, we put it on a bat, coach uses it. He uses it for a short amount of time. He can't understand the numbers, so he throws the sensor out, or the numbers don't fit the narrative that he wants to tell. He or she wants to tell, And so he just throws the sensor out and continues his narrative. Whether it helps you accelerate the barrel, bat speed, arrive on the upward plane more consistently, he doesn't try to fit. He doesn't try to learn how to produce the habits that are going to produce those things consistently. He just throws the sensor away so people can't see it, can't know if their philosophy actually works to do the things that actually matter, to create the movements that actually matter. They just throw the sensor out and continue to do what they do because my way works. Well, does it work? Like, does it work? Why are athletes successful? You know, why did LeBron James like have some guru, right? Or was he just, was he genetically gifted and his environment was what it was and his learning was what it was? Are some players just genetically gifted to overcome coaching? I would say yes. I would say yes. Like I would say some players overcame with environment, with their own genetics, and with repetition, some of the things that I was telling them before now. Before the last 2 or 3 years where we've really gotten into in-depth motor skill and motor pattern development and swing qualities and all of these things online, because the numbers start to pile up. Like my numbers of my online clients are really starting to pile up. I just wrote for a Division III, I think it's a Division III school in North Dakota. Their weighted bat programming, they had 16 of their 22 position players went up an average of about 4 miles an hour in bat speed over the course of 8 weeks. I think 3 of them stayed the same and maybe 3 of them went down. That happens. I mean, for one reason or another, you always have 1 or 2 that don't improve and you have 1 or 2 that get worse. I mean, that's just the nature of it. I mean, I guess you can probably guess why those things are. Lack of intent, lack of consistency, no urgency. Like, those are 3 factors in all of the training of the players that we have in-house that get worse. If they got worse, it wasn't because the programming wasn't good. It was because their intent, their consistency, or their urgency was not where it needed to be. And I can't help that. Like, if they can't come in and attack their work every day, like, I can't help that, because at some point there's got to be internal motivation to be good enough. I was listening to, I don't remember who I was listening to, but they said if you got to listen to Tony Robbins to be motivated, then you're probably not going to be very successful anyway, because successful people are already motivated. If you've got to constantly be stimulated to be motivated to be good as you can be, you're not going to be as good as you can be anyway. It's not going to happen for you. Somewhere along the way, like, you've got to be internally motivated to find the best version of yourself. Otherwise, it's not. Otherwise, it's not going to happen for you. And that's largely what happens when you see, because I always ask, like, I'm curious about the 3 players that went down. Like, tell me about them as players, and it's usually the same story. It's usually that kid that either believes the hype or believes they're better than what they are or whatever. But the numbers are piling up. The numbers are really starting to pile up. I don't know if you saw the post on Twitter about the kid from Wisconsin who went from 56 to 80 since August in his exit velocity. Now he's gotten stronger. His swing quality's improved tremendously. But it's just weighted bats, test, measure, assess, reassess, track your numbers, like track your training. Tweak your training, tweak your ideas, tweak your pattern a little bit, tweak your feel progression. It's funny because on Friday we had a young kid in the building, and I'm not against cues and I'm not against cueing at all. I use them where they fit, and we were trying to get this kid to rotate better in his front toss progression, and it really got down to where we were just basically telling him to like just, fire your knee. Fire your knee towards your front knee and try to squash the bug. And he started to rotate better. Like, that's all I was trying to get the kid to do, was rotate better. I didn't care what language we used. I didn't care what cue we used. I'm just trying to give him an idea to get him to rotate better. And was he rotating awesome? No. Ultimately, do we want to have to remind him that all the time? But we're just trying to give him something to feel what he's supposed to be feeling. That way you could try to duplicate that. We do that a lot. And so I think cues fit at some place, but we try to stay away from them largely. We just try to know what matters and what doesn't, and then try to navigate players through that, passively improving their swing quality and their measurable feedback and their measurable results. Are there any questions? I generally get on here and ramble for about 30 minutes about training and about instructors and coaches and players and parents and this, that, and the other. I hope you're training wherever you are. I hope your season's off to a good start. If you are in the online training program, I hope that your weighted bat training and your intent-driven swing mechanics are paying off for you. I hope your swing is developing more naturally. It's giving you more focus on getting to the game and just being on time and hitting. Being on time, hitting the ball, seeing the ball and hitting it hard and in the air far. I mean that's once we get to the game. That's what we're trying to do. Be on time. See the ball and try to hit it far. We've got a lot of homers happening. Lost a lot of things. Have you seen or worked with the new USA bat rules? Yes, so I have. And so I've had kids that thought it would be a good idea to buy the big barrel bat because they could swing the big barrel bat. The big barrel USA bats are really bad. They're really, really bad. The small barrel USA bats, if you can get them light enough, are not bad. I actually have several kids who, one kid did it, and then I told another kid to do it, and he did it. Just try to find the lightest small barrel bat that you can find. That way you can just swing it really fast. And their exit velocity numbers are relatively the same as the bat that they had before. Now, they didn't have the nuke stick like DeMarini composites or Easton composites, but they had Little League bats that were Little League standards, and the USA bats with the small barrels that are like drop 12s and drop 13s, they're swinging really good. So that would be my advice if you're wanting to get a USA bat, looking at a lot of exit velocities. Next to, do not get the big barrels. Every big barrel USA bat that I've seen is awful. The small barrel light ones are okay. This one kid's got a Rawlings that I really, really like. But I don't know. Just because it's a big barrel bat, people think it's better. It's not. What was the question about softball? I missed it. Sorry. Something about in-loaded, knob-loaded progressions or something. Ask it again. I missed it. I'm going to Mississippi on March the 24th again for a clinic. I'm going to book one clinic in April. Okay, I'm going to book one clinic in April. So if you want me to come and do an on-site training day at wherever you are, if you're a team, you've got a private facility, if you've got a public facility, you want to try to recruit players in, I'm going to book one in April, one in May, and maybe one in June. So if you are interested in some weighted bat training, some hit tracks, I bring all the weighted bats, I bring the hit tracks, I bring the programs. We go through the training. It's a 2.5 hour sessions for small group sessions. In load versus balance speed metrics. What numbers say? Balance speed. Are you talking about in load versus? So the players that we train, ultimately softball girls too, I like for them, once they figure out how to turn the barrel versus push the knob, I like for them to swing in loaded bats just because they swing them better. They gain more momentum. The bat gains more momentum, more speed, helps the pivot, helps kind of, promote the hand pivot, whatever. In loaded bats, once they figure out how to swing them, are better. Their exit speeds are better in both baseball and softball versus balance. I think balance bats are for people that just can't swing them very well. In loaded bats are for people that really know how to really turn barrels and elevate and do some damage. If you have been training, if you have been doing the training that I have written online for you in the online remote programs, then I would encourage you to swing a in-loaded bat. Are there any other questions? Are there any other development questions, training questions, programming questions, clinic questions, anything like that? If not, I'm going to jump off here. Again, if you want to go back and listen to previous discussions and previous roundtable talks and previous things that we've done, I know everybody is so busy this year with this time of year with getting it going again, but It's on podcast. You can look my name up, Chad Longworth. YouTube, same thing. You can look up my name, Chad Longworth. You can look at you can go to my website. I don't write enough on my website, but there's several blog articles about hitting ideas, concepts. Some of them are good, some of them are not. It's just a way for me to go and put, can you come to North Texas and put on a clinic? Absolutely. Just shoot me a DM. I've been everywhere. I'll go anywhere. And so, if that's going to be all, then this is Sunday Swings Live Show. I appreciate you watching. Share it, retweet it. Again, if you're catching this on the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and you rate the podcast well. It just helps share the message and share the ideas and the concept to somebody, hopefully that will find value from them. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the internet.